Keep yourself in the loop of everything football on the Golden State Media Concepts Football Podcast. The latest news on and off the field, be it college football, Big Ten, SEC, Big 12, Pac-12, ACC to the NFL. We've got you covered. Listen to the Golden State Media Concepts Football Podcast.
Welcome in, ladies and gentlemen. You are listening to the GSMC Football Podcast, which is brought to you, as always, by the GSMC Podcast Network. So much involved in the GSMC Podcast Network. Go check it out whenever you have a chance. I am your host, Kayvon. It is a new episode, a new day, and we appreciate all of you out there listening. As we open up another episode, as we lead in to Super Bowl Sunday. We are 2 weeks away. We're less than double-digit days, 8 days to be exact. So it's starting to feel real. It's starting to feel really, really real. And you can tell that by a lot of the topics that are happening this week, right? It's so funny in sports media, and I love it. Huge. That's why I do this. But, topics, they go show to show, right? You usually, especially on national shows, and there's these topics, you get these quotes from either teams that the two teams that are in the Super Bowl or, bigger names outside of the two teams that are either former coaches, former players, Hall of Famers, putting their stamp on what their experience is and what they've gone through when they've played in the Super Bowl and stuff like that. And, you bring these guys on shows and they break down the game. It's an awesome time. It's going to be a lot different than usual because one of the biggest things about Super Bowl Sunday, or Super Bowl week, I should say, is Radio Row. For those of you that don't know what that is, Radio Row is when pretty much every single sports show in the U.S. I mean, not literally every show, but almost every show out there goes to the city of the Super Bowl, and they're all jam-packed into one, arena, a venue, a gymnasium, or some area. And there's just shows all over. Everyone's doing their shows, and then all of these, former players, current players, former coaches, current coaches, movie stars, entertainers, you name it. They will come around and they'll literally just sit on your set. They'll walk by and they'll be like, I'm doing this show at this time and I'll slide right on over to your show right after that and do it with you. So it's crazy. It's an experience of a lifetime. You go down there and you pretty much just, because think about it, the Super Bowl is so big, there's so many companies that are trying to advertise their product, their company during the Super Bowl. Of course, during the Super Bowl game, but that's so expensive, companies also do it leading up to the Super Bowl. And the way they do that is they partner with some of these pro players, former pro players, current pro players, former coaches, current coaches, entertainers, whatever. And they have them go down to Radio Row and they have them do interviews all week for these big time shows and national shows, local shows, you name it. And then they'll give the person that's getting interviewed, that player, coach, whatever, they'll give them a couple of seconds to explain why they're there, and they'll promote like Old Spice or Dollar Shave Club, a bunch of brands like that. So it's really, really cool. It's so fun to hear, listening to people on Radio Row and the stories that they tell of who you meet and all that stuff. But what's interesting is that won't be happening this year, right? I mean, it's COVID. You can't go pack hundreds of different radio shows in one area. That's like a death sentence, literally. So you can't do that this year. So there's going to be so many different little aspects, just little things like that are going to change up this Super Bowl. And again, it is what it is. We should be thankful. We should be grateful that we're even getting a Super Bowl, that we made it this far, that we got every single game in. We're super happy for that. But it's different. And it makes me beg the question. It makes me bring up the question of how much of an advantage is Tampa Bay getting, right? Because think about it. First of all, as we talked on the last show, this is the first ever Super Bowl where the team that it's their stadium is playing in it, right? So the home team is actually playing in their own stadium. Well, a lot of you would say, yeah, that's really cool, but does it really matter? I mean, a lot of those tickets that are bought for the Super Bowl are by corporates, right? Or by big corporations, big tech guys, super rich guys, because they're so expensive. The average Joe, the average Tampa Bay fan can't buy a Super Bowl ticket. Well, that is true. Okay, that part is true. When it comes to a Super Bowl, there is a big majority of people that honestly aren't even there because they have an allegiance to one of the teams. They're there because it's the Super Bowl and they either get tickets to their companies or they're very rich and they can afford that because Super Bowl tickets are so expensive. And I'm pretty sure that I read somewhere that for this Super Bowl, because of the pandemic, you can't even buy single or, like 2 tickets at a time. You have to buy a pack of 4. So you have to go with a group of 4. And I'm pretty sure it was like $4,000 a ticket, which was what I was reading. And that wasn't even for really close. So you're paying a total like $40,000 for you and a set of 3 other people to go to this game, right? So that's the one thing, right? But there will be still a lot more Tampa Bay fans than Kansas City fans just because it's in Tampa Bay. So even if the hardcore fans aren't all there, most of the people that are going to go, they're going to be supporting Tampa Bay. Second, the NFL is doing an awesome job of, which they deserve so much credit for this, they are doing an awesome job of inviting a lot of doctors, a lot of nurses and frontline employees throughout this pandemic to the Super Bowl. And a lot of them will be from Tampa Bay. So that right there, they'll be cheering for Tampa Bay. And then third, and this is honestly, I think, the biggest thing. To me, this is what gives the Tampa Bay Buccaneers the biggest advantage to me. They're going to get to be home for 2 weeks straight where they get to sleep in their bed, eat home-cooked meals, hang out with their families, their wives, their kids, and just live their normal daily routine. That right there, while we might not think that's a big deal, it is a huge deal. While Kansas City players, they're going to be sleeping in hotel beds, they're going to be getting room service or getting food out, eating hotel food. They're not going to be sleeping in their own bed with their own pillows and their own sheets and getting to be with their wives and kids because it's a pandemic. It's not like they can just bring their whole family down there with them and have them stay with them, right? It's not a normal Super Bowl. So these players for Tampa, it's going to be such a different 2 weeks of leading up to it than it is for Kansas City, right? I mean, because of the pandemic, we don't even know how early Kansas City can get down there. They actually might not get down there as early as one would usually get down there for Super Bowl week. So that right there, when I was thinking about this all week, like how big of an advantage is it really for Tampa Bay to be playing at home? And it started, dawn on me, well, okay, the Super Bowl tickets, really a lot of those people that go to the Super Bowl is just super loaded people, right? And of course, it will be a majority of Tampa fans just because it is in Tampa. But I think it's the more underrated things that people don't think of is why they get the home field advantage. One, they're staying in their own bed. They're going to be with their families all week. And two, they're playing on a turf, on a field that they know very well. I think those two things are going to be more important than that they might have more fans there. That's my honest, that's just my opinion. That's what I was thinking of when it says, when it's all week, you hear, how much of an advantage is this going to be? They're playing at home. This is the first time ever. And we don't know because we've never had this happen. Another question I really am curious to see, and maybe one of you guys know this answer. I don't know. I haven't done any research into it. It was just something that popped in my mind literally right when I started this show. How is the stadium going to be set up? Because think about it. A normal Tampa Bay home game, they have that pirate ship. Every time they score a touchdown, they shoot the cannon off. There's Tampa Bay jerseys and team logos and all that stuff all over the place. Obviously, the center field won't be Tampa's logo because it's the Super Bowl. It's going to be the NFL logo. But will all their still home stuff, like their flags and all that, will they still shoot off the cannon every time Tampa Bay scores? Are they going to treat it like it's a home game? Or are they going to treat it like it's a Super Bowl and it just so happens to be that Tampa Bay is playing in their home stadium, but they're not actually going to show that? That's something I'm very curious about because it is technically a home game, right? But it also is the Super Bowl. And so how are you going to do that? You're not supposed to have home Super Bowls, right? If it happens, it happens, but you're still, I don't think, supposed to act like it's the home team Super Bowl. So that's going to be really, really interesting to see. Both teams have very similar colors, so I'll be very interested to see who's wearing what jersey. I think I heard that the Kansas City Chiefs are wearing red and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers are wearing white, but I'm not 100% positive on that. So, look, it's so fun. There's so much we're going to do before leading up to it. It's 9 days away. Or 8 days away, and we're gonna break down the game. We're gonna pick who we think's gonna win. We're gonna talk about Patrick Mahomes versus Tom Brady. We're gonna talk about the Bucs offense versus the Chiefs offense. We're gonna talk about the Bucs defense. See, the Bucs defense, I think, is the most intriguing part of this entire game. It really is to me. All right, and it's because that defense has been playing so good. The way they disrupted Drew Brees 2 weeks ago, the way they got 4 turnovers from that Saints offense, 4 turnovers. Then the way they go into Lambeau Field, they sack Aaron Rodgers 5 times. They hit him a total of like 13, 14 times. They were all over him all game, intercepting the ball, getting turnovers, rushing Rodgers to throw off passes, not, scaring him to the point, and not literally scaring him. Aaron Rodgers isn't getting scared, but making him uncomfortable to the point, I should say, where he doesn't try and run for that touchdown on 3rd and 8, 3rd and goal. So all these things is because what the Tampa Bay defense was doing all game, right? What those front four are doing with Shaquille Barrett and Vita Vea and Ndamukong Suh and Jason Pierre-Paul. See, these guys have been playing lights-out football. Linebacker Devin White, absolute stud, looking like he's going to be one of the best linebackers in the league very, very soon. I mean, very soon. He looks like that number 5 overall pick out of LSU. So how much pressure, how uncomfortable can they make Patrick Mahomes? Because look, as great as Drew Brees is, I picked the Tampa Bay Bucs to beat the Saints because I just don't think Drew Brees had it anymore. And he showed us that he doesn't. He's gotten older, and that's kind of how his NFL career is going to end. But then I wasn't as confident picking the Bucs against the Packers because I thought, okay, Rodgers is a huge step up, which he was and he is, and he's mobile. He's more mobile than Drew Brees. And he's more careful with the football at this age than Drew Brees was at the age he is right now. So I thought less turnovers, he'll be able to escape that pressure a little bit. And he was. He was able to put up good points on the team, but it wasn't enough. The defense still caused a lot of pressure, a lot of sacks, and a turnover. that one crucial interception by Rodgers right before halftime that then turned into the Tom Brady to Scotty Miller touchdown, Hail Mary touchdown. So those are things. So then you look at it and said, okay, Aaron Rodgers is great. Patrick Mahomes is a whole nother level. Patrick Mahomes, as great as Aaron Rodgers is, and he's going to be the MVP this year, Patrick Mahomes is a whole step up. Maybe a whole 2, 3, 4 steps up. So how good will that defense continue to play, and how much could it actually bother Mahomes? We haven't really seen Mahomes get rattled like that in his early career yet. Look, remember, Mahomes only has one playoff loss, and it's to Tom Brady. He's played Tom Brady 3 times so far, 4 times. I think he's 2-2 against Tom Brady. Yeah, that's correct. I have it right here. So he's Brady, that's right. Brady won the first 2 games, and then Mahomes won the 2 after that. Now, but Brady had the biggest win in all of those 4 matchups when he beat Mahomes and the Chiefs in the AFC Championship game 2 years ago when he was still on the Patriots. And if you guys remember, he went on to the Super Bowl where they lost to Nick Foles and the Philadelphia Eagles. And that was the last Super Bowl that he played with a New England Patriots jersey on. After that, he played one more year with the Patriots where they ended up losing in the playoffs at home to the Titans. And then this year, he went over to join the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. So they played a total of 4 times. 2-2 is the record. Again, Brady won the first 2. Mahomes came back, won the second 2. And Mahomes and the Chiefs have outscored Brady's teams a total of 121-120. So what does that tell you? When I tell you that all 4 times they played, the final score is 121-120. It tells you that every single game has been extremely close. It tells you that every single game has come down to the wire to an extent. If you remember that one game where Tom Brady actually won in the AFC Championship game where they went on to the Super Bowl, that was in overtime. And you really have to put some context on that game because if you guys remember, and I've talked about this for many years, I am not a fan of the NFL overtime rules. I'm not. It sucks. What is it? It's when it doesn't allow both players, both teams, both offenses, I should say, to get the football. So that game, Brady and the Patriots won the coin toss. They obviously elected to receive the ball in overtime, and they drove right down the field, scored a touchdown, game over. So Patrick Mahomes never even got a chance to get his hands on the football and score. And remember, that was Mahomes' first year as the starter for the Kansas City Chiefs. And he took the team all the way to the AFC Championship game. He they were down big at halftime to the Patriots, led a huge comeback in the second half, went to overtime, never got to touch the ball. Brady went on to win that game. Then fast forward, Mahomes wins the next 2 games, tied up 2-2, and now here we are, Brady versus Mahomes. So this is my whole point. And look, we have a lot to get into this show. I just want to start off kind of talking a little bit about the Super Bowl. We are going to really dive into the nitty-gritty throughout the week here because there's a lot more that we have to talk about that regards the NFL, but it's not on the Super Bowl, including Deshaun Watson. That is the biggest story of the day, and that's how we're going to start off segment 2. It is, for those if you haven't heard, I'm sure you have, Deshaun Watson has officially asked for a trade. He has officially demanded the Houston Texans to trade him. Remember, it was always out there that he was mad and that he was upset. He put it on Twitter. He told reporters about it. He was mad. But it never was official that he actually asked to be traded. Now, it was perceived. Everyone thought that this is where it was going to go. But he waited. He waited. He wanted to give them, I guess, the benefit of the doubt to see who they were going to hire at coach. Now, I'm not saying that because if to go along with that, they also hired their head coach. And we're going to get into all of this in a second here. But my whole point is, and we'll dive in deeper again in just at the top of the next segment here, I don't think it would have mattered who they hired. at this point. I think he was so upset with this team that he was going to demand a trade no matter what. So this has nothing to do with the new coach that they hired, who, by the way, his name is David Culley, and he was the assistant head coach for the Baltimore Ravens. And David Culley seems like a great guy. He's 65 years old. He has been a coach for 27 years in the NFL, but he's never been a head coach. He's never been an offensive coordinator. He's never been a defensive coordinator. He's always been a passing game coordinator, wide receivers coach, assistant coach, that type of stuff. And he was the passing game coordinator and the wide receiver coach for the Baltimore Ravens for the last couple of years, and he's been a coach for 27 years in the NFL. So the Houston Texans went out and hired him. Now, again, this has nothing to do with him, in my opinion. I think that Deshaun Watson was going to ask for a trade no matter what. Maybe if the Texans hired Eric Bieniemy, who he wanted them to hire from the start, he would have changed his mind. But I still think he was so furious with the organization that no matter what, he was going to ask for a trade, and he has now officially made it public. So, where does everyone in this situation go from here? That's what we're going to start this second segment off talking about. Where does everyone in this situation go from here? And now that it is official that Deshaun Watson wants out, remember, we all knew, but now it's official. Now he has officially said he wants out to the public of the Houston Texans. What are the best options? What are the best choices? And we're going to look at it from a different angle. If I am Deshaun Watson, where do I want to go? I'm going to give you guys my top choices of where I would want to go if I'm Deshaun Watson. We're going to talk about that next. We're also going to talk about the major quote that Tony Romo had to say about this upcoming matchup between these two quarterbacks, and it is spicy, and you're going to want to hear what I have to say about it. All of that coming up next. Don't go anywhere. This is the GSMC Football Podcast. I'm your boy, Kayvon Zombie.
Are you looking for help for your fantasy football team? Check out the GSMC Fantasy Football Podcast. Get today's best advice on who to start, who to sit, even who you should draft. From sleeper picks to red-hot lineups, they got it all covered for you. That's gsmcpodcast.com/fantasy-football-podcast. We'll cover traditional leagues, dynasty, PPR, even IDP leagues. When you need fantasy help, there's just one show to hit up. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit gsmcpodcast.com for more info.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. You are listening to the GSMC Football Podcast. I am your host, Kayvon Izami, as always, coming at you guys. However you're listening, wherever you're listening, and whenever you're listening, we really do appreciate you making us a little bit a part of your day. And we've got a jam-packed show. As always, we've been talking about so much. Opened up the show really just discussing the opening storylines of the Super Bowl. Home field advantage for the first time ever in a Super Bowl, with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers being the first team ever to host at their own stadium. Is it really home field advantage, though? As I said, I don't think it's as much home field advantage when it comes to the fans as it is just your daily routine of sleeping in your own bed, being with your family, your wife, your kids, having that smile on your face of knowing, your kids and your family, they're right down the road right there, getting home-cooked meals instead of, even though, don't get me wrong, it's not like the Kansas City Chiefs are staying in the Motel 6. Nothing against the Motel 6, just I think we all would rather be staying in in the Ritz or something like that, which I'm sure they're staying in. So it's not that they still are in a very comfy bed, very luxurious area, but we all know while hotels can be fun, it's much different than when you're sleeping in your own bed, your nice bed, your nice pillows, getting your home cooked meal with your family right there at your home. So it's different. It's going to be a big difference. Also, the flying situation. Tampa's been there now for a couple weeks. Kansas City, they have to fly. I'm not using an excuse because we'll get to my pick eventually. I'm not going to say it now, but no matter what, there's still a lot of time to adjust. This is the Super Bowl. Whoever wins, it's going to be a fair reason why they won the game. But this is something that we have to talk about with it being the first time ever we have a Super Bowl like this, right? Where, again, there is a home team. So that's going to be the very interesting part in a lot of what we see here. And another thing is that's going to be really interesting. And one of the things that I'm going to be watching for most throughout the game, how do the Tampa Bay Bucks front four impact Patrick Mahomes? Because again, they did it really well against Drew Brees. They did it really well against Aaron Rodgers. But with no disrespect to Aaron Rodgers and Drew Brees, Patrick Mahomes is steps, not just steps ahead of him. It's going to be a whole different ballgame. While Aaron Rodgers is also a mobile quarterback, he can move. Patrick Mahomes is much more shifty. He can move now, and he also can throw on the move really well. But the one thing is, and we saw this in the AFC Championship game, remember, Mahomes is banged up right now. He has turf toe, which is extremely painful. He played on that turf toe, but you saw Andy Reid was much more easy on the play calls in terms of he didn't call any run plays for Mahomes. Usually he calls a couple a game to get Mahomes out there running the ball. He kept Mahomes in the pocket the entire time, and the only time Mahomes even moved out of that pocket was when he was just making plays. But Mahomes never took off or anything like that on his own. There was never any designed run plays, which was smart because the reason that Patrick Mahomes got hurt in the first place against the Cleveland Browns in the divisional round was because Andy Reid kept calling these run plays that he was getting knocked out with. He was getting hit really hard. Now, the turf toe, that was how he got the concussion. The turf toe was a different thing, but, that's going to be a big factor. How healthy is Patrick Mahomes' toe? Is that something that might hamper him again? Will that keep the Andy Reid and the Chiefs and Eric Bieniemy not calling any design run plays for Mahomes? So that, his injury, and how the front four goes after him, the type of pressure, the type of, are they going to make him as uncomfortable as they did Drew Brees and Aaron Rodgers? Because to be honest with you, I don't think you can stop Tyreek Hill. I don't think you can stop Travis Kelce. Actually, I know for a fact you cannot stop Travis Kelce. And when you have Andy Reid, one of the best head coaches in the history of the game, and an up-and-coming fantastic offensive coordinator in Eric Bieniemy calling these plays, it just makes those two guys even more dynamic and even harder to stop. So, to be honest, and for you Bucs fans out there listening, I know it sounds tough, it sounds harsh, but it's facts, and you're going to need to come to grip with these facts when the game starts. You're not shutting down Tyreek Hill, and you're not shutting down Travis Kelce. Well, then you say, then Kayvon, why even play the game? Because you're pretty much telling us the Chiefs are going to win. That's not true. What you can do is you can make Mahomes flustered. You can make Mahomes uncomfortable, which then in itself will put some type of blockage on Tyreek Hill and Travis Kelce. You have a better chance of messing up Mahomes' rhythm making him throw the ball, somehow get him out of rhythm with the pressure that you bring on him with that front four, then you do saying, okay, we're going to give Mahomes time, but we have to have you guys in the back lock and you linebackers lock down Travis Kelce and Tyreek Hill. I think if that's the game plan, you have absolutely zero shot. You guys saw what happened when these two played each other earlier in the season. Tyreek Hill went for like 1,000 yards in the first quarter. 3 touchdowns and 1,000 yards in the first. Obviously, it wasn't 1,000, but it was like that. It felt like that. And he literally did score 3 touchdowns in that game because they tried to play man-on-man, one-on-one with him. You cannot do that when you have that kind of guy, that speedster, that type of talent with Mahomes as the signal caller throwing the ball. You're setting yourself up to lose. Now, the thing is, this is the positive thing for you Bucs fans. You have a great defensive coordinator in Todd Bowles, who he is someone where, okay, that was the first time he went up against this offense, right? And they let him have it. They gave him the business. But now he's going to be able to react, right? We always talk about there's action and there's reaction. He is now going to get to study the film, put in a game plan, and react to how they attacked his defense in game 1. That is a huge positive for the Bucs. A second positive is you guys had that type of game. You allowed Tyreek Hill to go for 3 touchdowns and 1,000 yards in one half, and you only lost by 3. Now, Kansas City was not playing very well during that stretch, but still, that's a positive. And then the third and most important thing to me is your front four is playing the best in the league, because that, again, is how you shut down that team. You have to get Mahomes off rhythm. You have to hit him. You have to get in his face. You have to make him uncomfortable. It's exactly how Tom Brady has lost Super Bowls. It is. Look, if it wasn't for Michael Strahan and them boys on the New York Giants getting in Tom Brady's face, making him uncomfortable, giving him 0 seconds to throw that ball once he hiked it from his center, then Tom Brady would be 9-0 in the Super Bowl. But there's a way to beat him, and that's how you do it. So there's a way to beat Mahomes as well, and that's how you're going to do it. It's not going to be because you're going to completely shut down Travis Kelce and Tyreek Hill. You're just not. Look, they're going to get theirs. They're too good. There's too many weapons out there as well, where you have guys like Sammy Watkins and others that can step up, where the defense has to pay attention to them and Le'Veon Bell and Clyde Edwards-Helaire and Darrell Williams, where you have to pay attention to those as well. So you can't just put everyone on Travis Kelce and Tyreek Hill, Mecole Hardman, those boys. So because of that, you're just not going to shut these guys down. You have to do it by getting pressure and making Mahomes uncomfortable. So we'll dive into that more now. Again, this is the GSMC Football Podcast. We have a couple more shows to do before Super Bowl Sunday kicks off. So we'll dive into that. I'll give you guys my picks. We'll go through props. We'll do a bunch of fun things, but I want to get back into this situation here with Deshaun Watson. Now, if for some reason you've been living under a rock the last couple of days and you haven't heard, Deshaun Watson has officially asked for a trade to get out of Houston. Now, I do not blame him. With what's happened so far in Houston, it's been a disaster. And really, I don't know how you can be happy with your franchise at all right now if you're a Houston Texans fan. I feel bad for Houston Texans fans. I would be clinically depressed if I was a Houston Texan fan, because you just upset not just one of the greatest quarterbacks in the league today, but also one of the greatest quarterbacks in the league today that is 25 years old, that just led the entire NFL in passing after you guys shipped away his star top 3 receiver in the game in DeAndre Hopkins, throwing to guys like Chad Hansen and Will Fuller, who's a very good receiver, Brandon Cooks, who's a good receiver, but these guys aren't, Kiki Cootie, these guys aren't DeAndre Hopkins. They're not. And he still led the league in passing in passing yards after everything that's happened this year. And because the organization was so inept, was so clueless, was just either purposely screwed themselves or just so dumb that they didn't know what they were doing. They upset him that much. And now he wants out. And there's so many questions to this, but one in particular, how can you blame him? I personally can't. Because at some point, when you do those type of mistakes over and over and over, even a kid that's as good as Deshaun Watson, he's going to get frustrated. Because, yeah, he got his money, but he wants to win. And when you have an owner that walked up to Deshaun Watson himself and said, hey, I want you to be involved in this process. And then Deshaun Watson says, great, that's awesome. I appreciate that. I really, really appreciate that. So here's a list of guys that I would like you to interview and possibly hire. That's all Deshaun Watson said. And the guy on the top of his list was Eric Bieniemy. And what does the owner do? Not only does the owner not interview Eric Bieniemy at first, every other team out there interviews him except the Houston Texans. He then goes and hires a GM right away without interviewing any of the guys that Deshaun put on the list. And again, Deshaun was not asking them to hire these guys. He just said, take them into consideration. And the owner does the complete opposite. He has a guy named Jack Easterby who is supposedly the team pastor, and somehow he's running the organization. It is all a screw up. And now they go and hire a guy who is 65 years old, and David Culley, who's been in the league for 27 years but doesn't have any head coaching experience or has never been an actual offensive coordinator. He's always been like a passing game coordinator, wide receivers coach, assistant coach. Still, a guy that has earned his dues. He has coached in the league for 27 years. He has earned his time to be a head coach. He deserves this. But you can't tell me that this was their first pick. I'm sorry, you can't. And this is no disrespect to David Culley, who clearly is a great football coach because he's been in the NFL for 27 years. You can't coach in the NFL for 27 years. I don't care if you're a linebackers coach or a cornersback coach or you're a receivers coach. To be in the NFL for 27 years is incredible. He earned his time to be a head coach. But you can't tell me this was their first pick. With all the guys out there, Eric Bieniemy, you cannot tell me that this was his first pick. So you hire this guy, and you expect that Deshaun Watson's going to be happy about that. You've done nothing to, show him that there's trust that he can believe you. So of course he's upset, and of course he wants out. So it becomes this question. Where is he going? Because I think he's gone. I do not think there is any way that the Houston Texans can fix this situation. I just don't think so. I think Deshaun Watson has already made up his mind. I think he has 1 foot out of the door. I think he has 2 feet out of the door, I should say. And I don't think there's any way of talking him back into this. I really don't. So the question becomes, where should he go? Because remember, he has a no-trade clause in his contract. So he actually can dictate which team he wants to go to. Now, a no-trade clause means that they can't trade him to a team without him accepting it. Now, he wants out of Houston so bad, I feel like he's probably going to accept almost any trade. And I think that every single team, other than maybe 3 or 4 teams, should be picking up the phone and calling and seeing what it's going to take. Other than Kansas City because they have Mahomes and Russell Wilson because Seattle because they have Russell Wilson. I'm sorry, every other team, maybe Buffalo because of Josh Allen and Chargers because of Justin Herbert. Every other team I'm picking up the phone to say, okay, what's it going to take to get Deshaun Watson? He is that good. He is that good. Now, with that being said, again, Deshaun Watson can nix some of these trades because he has a no-trade clause. I personally am of the opinion, though, that he'll accept almost any trade out there. I really do believe that. I think he'll go to the Jets. I think he'll go to the Raiders or the Dolphins or anything like that because I think he just wants out. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to tell you guys where my top choices would be if I'm Deshaun Watson. All right, we are going to pretend like I am Deshaun Watson. Where would my top picks be? if I am the star 25-year-old quarterback. And remember, this is new territory. We don't see this in the NFL. This is not the NBA where these guys force their ways out all the time. We don't see star quarterbacks at age 25 able to be out on the market for grabs. I mean, the last time we saw a quote-unquote, and I'm putting air quotes out there, star quarterback on the market was Kirk Cousins. Okay, and no disrespect to Kirk Cousins, but we all know Deshaun Watson is miles better than Kirk Cousins. So this doesn't happen, all right? Let's get that out of the way first. This does not happen often, if ever, really. So he wants out. So now the first thing is that is believable. Now let's say, okay, since he has a no-trade clause, let's not make up any crazy scenarios, right? Because he can kind of dictate where he wants to go. So I think that there's about 5, 6, 7, 8 teams that are a realistic chance to get him. Now, there's a couple names that I want to throw out right away. First of all of the teams in the AFC South. That's the Titans, the Colts, and the Jaguars. And then obviously the Houston Texans, which he's already on. The Jaguars, I do not think will make the trade, even though they have the number 1 pick, and I think Houston would love that. But 2 reasons why. One, why would the Jaguars bail out the Houston Texans? And what do I mean by that is, if the Jaguars traded the number 1 overall pick, yes, they would be getting Deshaun Watson, who I believe is Trevor Lawrence is going to be a great quarterback in the NFL. But the thing about the NFL is you're going to take a proven quarterback over someone that's just a prospect. And even though we all believe, everyone and their mothers believe that Trevor Lawrence is going to be amazing, you're still would take Deshaun Watson. But what the Jaguars would be doing is they would be giving a division rival a way out. Because if the Texans then got Trevor Lawrence with that number 1 pick, which is what the Jaguars would have to give up to get Watson, they would be on their way to really in a full-on rebuild where they have a legit direction. So cross that out. And then cross the Titans out and the Colts out. Even though the Colts are a team that would be very interesting, the Texans aren't going to trade to any team within the division. They're just not going to do that. The other team I would take out is the Saints. The Saints are $100 million over the cap. There is no possible, I keep hearing the Saints in there from some people out there, that there's no possible way. They are $100 million over the cap. Unless they can find a way to get rid of Michael Thomas and get rid of Alvin Kamara and those guys, they're not going to be able to sign a quarterback with big cap money this year. They're just not, okay? So it brings me down to these teams. The New York Jets, the Miami Dolphins, the Carolina Panthers, the San Francisco 49ers, the Washington Football Team, the Chicago Bears, and the New England Patriots. Those are the 8 teams that I think have a realistic shot of getting him, like a real shot. Those are also the 8 teams that I think Deshaun Watson would love to go to. Now, I think he'd love to go to a bunch of other teams too. I think he would be totally fine with going to Las Vegas. I think he'd be fine with going to Denver. I think he'd be fine with going to Atlanta. I think he'd be fine with going to almost any team out there as long as their team isn't named the Houston Texans. So we're going to stick with those teams, though, because those 8 teams are the teams that guys like Adam Schefter are talking about the most. Those teams are the teams that actually have stuff they can give up for Deshaun Watson. And also those teams all need quarterbacks. So we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we will run through those teams, and I'm going to tell you 1 through 8, which teams are the best option from 1 to 8. They're all good options from where he's at Houston, but if you could go from 1 to 8, we're going to list them right here. And then I want to hear from you guys at Kayvon_sports. If you're a GM, 1, you're trading for him, right? And then 2, where do you think he fits best? Where do you want to see Deshaun Watson go? Hit me up on Twitter. We'll read those replies, those remarks next show as always. This is the GSMC Football Podcast. I'm your host, Kayvon Izami. We will be right back after this break.
Check out the show that's built on the MMA, from the UFC to extreme cage fighting. They got the fights covered. Check out the GSMC MMA podcast. Get the latest news on past or upcoming fights. Join us as we talk to and about some of the biggest names in the MMA, past, present, and future. When it's the fight game, there's just one show to check out. GSMCpodcast.com/MMA-podcast. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit GSMCpodcast.com for more info.
You are listening to the GSMC Football Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. I am your host, as always, Kayvon. Thank you, everyone, for joining us on this lovely day. However you're listening, wherever you're listening, and whenever you're tuning in, we really do appreciate it. A lot to talk about as we are now 2 segments into this fine show, and look, we've been breaking it down, talking a little bit about the Super Bowl. Again, we are going to do so much more when it comes to the Super Bowl and predictions and prop bets and all of that stuff. I think we're going to have on a couple of guests as well. So don't worry, you're going to get your Super Bowl fix on this show. There's no doubt about that. But there's so much more going on in the NFL, which makes the NFL such a great sport, that leads up to us this Super Bowl week and then carries into the offseason. And one of those things is the Deshaun Watson news, right? The news that he officially has demanded a trade. Now, again, we all knew he wanted a trade. It was out there. He was pissed off. He let his emotions be shown, and rightfully so. I think I haven't heard one person out there criticize Deshaun Watson for making this move. And the reason that is because, think about it, usually when you see athletes use their power that they have, a lot of people don't like to admit it, but athletes have power, and they should use that power when need be. But a lot of times when we see these athletes, especially in the NBA, we don't see it as much in the NFL, but when we see these athletes use their power to leverage a situation to get themselves out of one team and onto a new team, usually we get pretty upset, right? And we as in the majority of people, the majority of fans, because let's just face it, a lot of people don't like to see how much control the athlete can have. And it makes them uncomfortable, it makes them upset, and it also hurts their team if they're a part of that team that the athlete wants to get out of. For example, the Houston Rockets and Harden, the way James Harden, kind of forced his way out of that situation, a franchise that gave him everything. I mean, literally everything he wanted. It was, okay, let's bring in Chris Paul. They brought in Chris Paul. They almost made the NBA Finals. It didn't work out. Him and Chris Paul started to butt heads. He said, I want Chris Paul out. Bring in Russell Westbrook. Brought in Russell Westbrook for 1 year. After 1 year, they made the playoffs. They lost in the second round. And next thing you know, Harden says, I don't think that me and Westbrook were great friends, but I don't think this is going to work on the court. I want out. And now he goes out. I mean, so they gave him everything, still couldn't make him happy enough, and now he demands his way out. So I understand when fans are like, come on, that's ridiculous. That's not fair. This is a different situation, though. And that's why I think you're not seeing anyone out there criticize Deshaun Watson, because this is a situation where the Houston Texans have brutally screwed up. And I don't think anybody could disagree with that. It's a franchise that is messed up for the last 2-3 years. It all started by giving a head coach who is a very good head coach too much power, okay? Bill O'Brien would still be the head coach there today if he wasn't awarded the GM power as well. He's a good football coach. He's not a general manager. There's a reason why it's two different things. There's a reason why you have a football coach and you have a general manager. There's a reason why the football coach should do the football things, coaching the team, working with the players, and the general manager should do the business side of things, trading players, helping out with roster acquisitions, salary cap moves, that type of stuff. When you have one person do both, very rarely does it work out well. The one person is Bill Belichick, and look at what's happening now. Now that Tom Brady's gone, his team, his roster is a mess. It's arguably one of the worst rosters in the entire league, especially on the offensive side of the ball. Okay, so Bill O'Brien got himself in trouble with using the power that he was given, and he abused that power. He made stupid trades, whether he thought that they were actual trades that were best for the team or whether he let his emotions get involved in terms of trading away guys like DeAndre Hopkins who maybe he didn't see eye to eye with. But in the end, that's what cost him his job. And that's why Houston is now in this situation, because they don't have any picks to help move this team forward. But that's not why Deshaun Watson wants out. See, if Deshaun Watson was just sitting here saying, you know what, I really don't see that you guys put me in a good position to win, so I think I want out. No, he didn't complain. Yeah, he said he wants to win, but he wasn't going to complain to get out because of that. No, it's once the organization then became so dysfunctional, they asked him for his opinion of what to do. He gave them his thoughts, and then they completely ignored him. They went behind his back and did the complete opposite of what he said he wanted them to do. Wouldn't that make you mad? That would make anybody mad. So he has every right to want out, but now the question becomes, okay, where should he go? Because this is the huge part of this. Deshaun Watson has a no-trade clause. Now, for those that don't know what that means, a no-trade clause is when a team trades a player. Usually that player does not have a chance to nix the trade, does not have a chance to say, no, I don't want to go there, because they don't have control of that, unless you have a no-trade clause in your contract. The way you get one of those is if your agent is able to negotiate one of those in there. You only usually see the top players, the really the best players in the league have these no-trade clauses. That's what you usually see. So Deshaun Watson was able to get a no-trade clause when his agent was negotiating his contract last year. So now that means that the Houston Texans, they can't just send him anywhere. They have to make sure Deshaun Watson approves the situation. Now, Deshaun Watson's a good guy. And from what I'm hearing, from what everyone's saying, Deshaun Watson just wants to get out of Houston. He doesn't care where it is. He just wants to get out. Now, he has top choices, and you hear that the New York Jets, the Miami Dolphins, those are his top two, but he's already said he'll go anywhere pretty much. He just wants out of Houston. He wants to get out of that dysfunctional organization that has really made him upset. So that right there makes Houston still have a lot of options. Now, if Deshaun Watson was to come out and say, you know what, I actually don't want to go to a lot of different teams. I really only want to go to New York, let's say New York, Miami, and Carolina. Those are the only three teams. That would really put Houston in a tough situation because it would cut off almost all of their leverage. If there's only three teams negotiating, Houston doesn't have as much leverage. So Deshaun Watson could really put them in a tight situation if he did that. I don't see him doing that. I think he's very open to just getting out of Houston wherever that lands him. So I decided we're going to play, if I am Deshaun Watson, where would I want to go? Okay, this isn't where Houston wants to send him. This isn't what's best for Houston or what's best for what team. if I'm Deshaun Watson, if I'm looking at it from his perspective, where would I want to go? So I told you guys before we ended that last segment, I said there are 8 teams that I believe are really in the mix to get him. Now, I do think almost every single team in the league has or will be calling Houston about him. Doesn't mean they're going to make the trade, but because this is such a rare moment in the NFL, because Deshaun Watson is such a great quarterback. Again, we don't see this in the NFL, guys. We see it in the NBA all the time. You do not see this type of situation in the NFL. You just don't. And what that situation is a 25-year-old superstar quarterback on a pretty fairly good contract in terms of the amount of money he makes. It's not as hefty of a price as a lot of these other QBs. And he's about to be on the market. I mean, you just don't get that type of quarterback at that age on the market up for grabs in the NFL. The last quote-unquote star quarterback was Kirk Cousins. And no disrespect to Kirk Cousins, Deshaun Watson is in a whole other class. So because of that, every single team other than Kansas City because they have Patrick Mahomes, other than Seattle because they have Russell Westbrook, other than Buffalo and because they have Josh Allen, and Baltimore because they have Lamar, and probably the Chargers because they have Justin Herbert. Other than those teams right there, every other team in the league should be picking up the phone, calling the Houston Texans, and just asking, what's it going to take? What are you guys asking for us to take Deshaun off your hands? Doesn't mean that all those teams are actually involved in the real mix. But every team should be picking up the phone outside of those, 5-6 handful of teams that I just named. But I think there are 8 teams that are specifically really, really in the mix to get Deshaun Watson. And those 8 are the New York Jets, the Miami Dolphins, the New England Patriots, the Carolina Panthers, San Francisco 49ers, the Washington football team, and the Chicago Bears. Okay, so I am going to tell you my order in where I would want to go if I'm Deshaun Watson. Okay, this is if I am Deshaun Watson, what are my top 8 teams? What are the variety of factors that go into this decision? My first team, we'll go 1 through 8. You know what? Okay, no, we'll go 1 to 8. All right, I was going to say we'll make it a little interesting, go 8 to 1, but I already have my notes written out 1 to 8. So we'll go 1 to 8 here. Number 1 for me, if I'm Deshaun Watson, would be San Francisco by a mile. Okay, I mean, I think that San Francisco is above and beyond the top team in Deshaun Watson's head if it became his list, right? And that's for a bunch of different reasons. One, without Deshaun Watson, they are already a top 5 Super Bowl favorite next year. They just had a ton of bad injuries. They were the most injured team in the league. We talk about this all the time. Every year, football is a very violent sport. Every year, there's always one team that just gets decimated with injuries, right? Every single year that happens. San Francisco was the team this year. I mean, they were just over and over, everybody on the team. And not just, it was important players, star players that were getting hurt. So that's number 1. They are already a legit team without Deshaun Watson. All right, they are stacked. They're not very happy with Jimmy G. So in terms of, I just want to go to a team that can win, they've got everything right in front of them in San Francisco, right? I mean, think about it. If Deshaun Watson goes to Kyle Shanahan with that offensive zone running scheme, one, since Deshaun's been in Houston, it's all been on him, right? He has to make all the plays. He takes all the hits. He's gotten sacked more than any other QB. You remember there was that one season where he literally couldn't even fly on a plane because he got hit so bad and they were worried about his lung capacity or whatever. So he had to take a bus to go from game to game for a couple of weeks. All right, so it's all been about him. If he goes to the 49ers, the pressure, because of Kyle Shanahan's system and the way he likes to run the ball so much, completely is taken off of him, and it really becomes a team game. The running backs will be involved. He won't have to do so much. The offensive line will be better. The defense is much better. So, I'll tell you this right now. If Deshaun Watson goes to the 49ers, I'm running to the ticket, to the window, to get myself a future ticket for the 49ers to come out of the NFC next year and representing the NFC in the Super Bowl. So that is my number one team if I'm Deshaun Watson, all right? All of the rest of the teams from here, in my opinion, are good, but they all have a but to them, right? They all have a, yeah, but, okay? So number two, if I'm Deshaun Watson, would be Miami, okay? Why? Because they have an extremely good coach. If you guys have been following this show, you know how obsessed I am with Brian Flores. I think he is going to be one of the best coaches in the league, or if he isn't already. I mean, he is so impressive to me. He's a fantastic coach. They have a really good defense. Two great cornerbacks, Xavier Howard, Brian Jones. They've got a good defensive line, good linebackers. The problem is they have a bad offensive line. That's the but, right? They have a bad offensive line, and he's already coming from a place with an atrocious offensive line. So that's the one but there with Miami. But everything else, love the Miami. Also, put a little cherry on top. He'll be in Miami, no state income tax. Texas was another place, so he was already in a place with no state income tax, and he gets to go to another. That would be a huge that's just one other thing for these players who, when you make a lot of money, you got to pay a lot of taxes, no state income tax. That's pretty nice. So other than that, but Miami, number two for me. Number three would be Washington, okay? The one but here would be their ownership, okay? Their ownership is dysfunctional. Dan Snyder, he's always been a nutcase. But you can kind of put that aside because of who is running the team now. And that's the big perks of why Washington would be number three for me. One, you get an outstanding defensive line. Probably the best defensive line in the league, or top two, top three, right? A bunch of first-round picks on that defensive line. You get a really good young receiver in Terry McLaurin. You have a great young running back. You've got a fantastic head coach and a fantastic person in Ron Rivera, who's got a long contract. He's going to be there for a long time, and there's going to be a lot of stability there, right? There's going to be a lot of stability with Washington because Ron Rivera will be there for a while, that the defensive line is going to be good for a while. You have young and upcoming stars in the backfield and the wide receiver group. And they already had some success under Alex Smith, who's a good quarterback, but he's not Deshaun Watson. So that is why Washington would be number three, a place where if Deshaun comes, all three, Washington, Miami, 49ers, Deshaun goes to their team, they're all making the playoffs next year. Okay, number four. This is where it gets a little more interesting. These are teams that need a little bit more help than just adding Deshaun Watson. And that's Denver. Number four to me is Denver because I really like their young talent. They have great young receivers. They really do. Tim Patrick, Jerry Jeudy, Noah Fant, their tight end. They've got two running backs, Melvin Gordon. So they have a lot of good pieces on offense. Their defense, they've got Bradley Chubb, who's a Pro Bowler, Von Miller, who's a star, but he's coming off a really bad injury. We'll see what happens there. They've got Justin Simmons in the back. Defensive back. So they have a lot of good pieces to surround Deshaun Watson. I really like Vic Fangio as a coach, but he's a defensive coach. We'll see what that means for Deshaun Watson. John Elway's no longer their GM. They've hired a new guy. I really, really like their receiver group in terms of the talent that they have. That's all great. The one but for Denver is they're still missing some things, right? If Deshaun goes in there, They're in a really tough division with Kansas City and Patrick Mahomes. They're in Justin Herbert's up and coming. The Chargers have a good roster, and the Raiders have a pretty good roster as well. So the one but would be is I don't know how much winning will happen right away, but for the future, for the long run, this would be a great fit for Deshaun Watson being in Denver like that. I think Denver should be a team that's very aggressive going after Deshaun. Number 5 would be New England. And listen, the reason why New England isn't higher on this list for me, because look, New England has everything. You have the best football coach ever in Bill Belichick. You have above average defense because of what Bill Belichick's going to do with that defense. It's always going to be good. The offensive line is good. It's definitely above average. It will be good. But the big but here is the New England Patriots, and I've been preaching this for a while, have the worst skill set positions on offense. They have 0 weapons. They literally have 0 weapons. Okay? So he's going to go to a place that has no wide receivers, no tight ends, and pretty much no running backs, right? I mean, so he will be going from one place where he's doing it all on offense to another place where he's doing it all on offense. The one good thing, though, is he'll have Bill Belichick, who knows how to take the pressure off of him, who knows how to let the defense do a lot of the work. So that will help. But for the first couple years, until Belichick can bring in some talent around him on offense, he's going to be doing a lot of running around and making a lot of plays on his own. But because you'll have Bill Belichick, because you'll have that defense, you'll still win a good amount of games and eventually a lot of games in New England. So I love New England, and I think with their situation, they should really be going after Deshaun Watson heavily. Okay, so that's my top 5. We've got 3 more to go. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we're going to run down the 3, and then there is some breaking news that has come across my desk. Matt Stafford is on the move. That's right. Matt Stafford has been traded, and boy, is this a blockbuster deal. We will talk about that. We'll finish up the last 3 where I think Deshaun Watson should want to go, and then we'll talk about what this big trade is and what this means moving forward. We'll be right back after this.
Check out the show built around the women of MMA. From the UFC to the extreme cage fighting, we got the fights covered.
Listen.
It's the Golden State Media Concepts Women's MMA Podcast. The latest news of upcoming fights, discussions of previous matches. Join us as we talk to and about the biggest names in women's mixed martial arts, past, present, and future. When it's the women's fight game, you know where to listen to. The Golden State Media Concepts Women's MMA Podcast.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. You are listening to the GSMC Football Podcast. I am your host, Kayvon Izami. Thank you, everyone, for joining us on this great show as we enter segment number 4, quarter number 4. We are less than 10 days away from Super Bowl Sunday. Tampa Bay Buccaneers at home, bringing in the Kansas City Chiefs. Kansas City looking to go back-to-back. Patrick Mahomes looking to win 2 Super Bowls in a row. Andy Reid looking to win 2 Super Bowls in a row. Andy Reid, by the way, is already going to go down as one of the greatest coaches of all time. If he can go into that rare air of being a 2-time Super Bowl winner as a head coach, he really, really will put himself in a whole other class when it comes to his legacy as a head coach. Again, he doesn't need it because he's already such a great coach and he's so likable. Everyone loves him. But, man, to win 2 and to win 2 back-to-back, the dynasty for Kansas City will officially be underway. A lot of people are already saying it's already a dynasty because they made it to 2 Super Bowls in a row. You can say that, but I want to see them win 2 in a row. And then I will officially declare them a dynasty, especially if that second one comes against the greatest quarterback of all time in Tom Brady. And we're going to talk about this because Tony Romo, who, longtime Dallas Cowboys quarterback, now does a really fantastic job in the booth for CBS calling games with Jim Nantz. A lot of people hate on Tony Romo. I love him. I think he does such a good job calling those games. I learn something from him every single time I watch his games. But he came out with a really interesting quote about this game and how important it is for Patrick Mahomes to win this game if he wants any chance at all to ever catch Tom Brady in the GOAT category. And it is a fascinating quote, and I think he is 1,000% correct. And we're going to dive into that because I really want to take a whole segment to talk about that. So we're going to dive into it on next show because we have so much to talk about. If right now, because of the breaking news that just came down, if we have time at the end, we'll dive into it. But for those of you that haven't seen it, go and look it up. Tony Romo had a really interesting quote about what Mahomes has to do this game if he wants any chance at all to catch Tom Brady as the greatest quarterback of all time. And I think he's spot on. And again, we will dive into that next show. But right now, breaking news, Matthew Stafford has been traded to the Los Angeles Rams. That is right. It's official. Adam Schefter has reported Matthew Stafford is going to the Los Angeles Rams for Jared Goff. So they're switching places and 2 first-round picks plus a third-round pick, right? So Matthew Stafford is heading from Detroit to Los Angeles. Detroit is getting back former number 1 overall pick in 2016, Jared Goff, who, remember, has taken the Rams to the Super Bowl. Jared Goff has been there, and he has made the playoffs every single year so he's missed the playoffs 2 years. One of them was with Jeff Fisher, and he was a rookie. He didn't even start every game that year, so that doesn't count. But under McVay, he's made the playoffs every single year but one, and he's had a winning record every single year under McVay. And he's made the Super Bowl, and now they're just sending him out with 2 first-round picks. Remember, the Rams do not have a first-round pick this year. That's going to Jacksonville because of the Jalen Ramsey trade, okay? So they are now going to give their first-round pick next year, 2022, plus their first-round pick the following year, 2023, and Jared Goff, and their third-round pick this year. So Detroit got an absolute haul back for Matthew Stafford. I mean, an absolute haul. And, we're talking about Deshaun Watson and the Texans. The Texans should be looking at this trade and licking their lips and smiling from ear to ear. Because if you see that Matthew Stafford, who is a good quarterback, but he's much older than Deshaun Watson. He's in his 30s. He's a very good quarterback. He's never won a playoff game. That's a lot, in large part due to the organization that he was with in Detroit, but he's a good quarterback, but he's older. And he just went for 2 first-round picks. The Houston Texans should not even discuss. They shouldn't even say a word to another team on the phone unless that team starts the conversation with, okay, 4 first-round picks and what else, right? If I hear 2 first rounds, if I hear 3 first rounds, I'm hanging up the phone. If I'm the Texans owner and the GM, I am hanging up the phone unless I hear the words 4 first-round picks to start the conversation for Deshaun Watson. Because, look, and I get it. The Rams had to unload that massive contract of Jared Goff, so it was going to take a lot more for them, and I understand that, but this still gives the Houston Texans some leverage. Now, they don't have a bunch of leverage. They do not have a lot. Okay, let's remember, because Deshaun Watson wants out no matter what, they eventually are going to have to make that trade, so they don't have as much leverage as they would, but they still should be looking at this and saying, okay, if a 30-plus-year-old quarterback is going for 2 first-round picks. We have a 25-year-old superstar here. We need more than that. We need a lot more than that. And I would be trying to start at 4 and at minimum 3, but I would be looking to start at 4 first-round picks if I'm the Houston Texans. So massive, massive deal. We're going to get into that, what this means for Matt Stafford, what this means for Matt Stafford's legacy in his career, what this means for the Rams, and what this means for Detroit. We will get all into that, but I want to finish what we were talking about with Deshaun Watson. Remember, I am being Deshaun Watson right now. And I'm telling you, there are 8 places that I would really want to go. Again, I'd be happy pretty much going anywhere, but as long as I'm out of Houston, I'd be happy. That's what the situation seems like. So I'm telling you, though, if I'm Deshaun Watson, where are my top 8 places? I said number 1, above all of them, is the 49ers, right? That's you get that, you're a Super Bowl contender right away. Number 2 is Miami. Love what they have building. A fantastic young head coach in Brian Flores. Number 3 is Washington, arguably the best a defensive line in the whole NFL, a bunch of former first-round picks, a fantastic leader and coach in Ron Rivera. You'll have some stability because he's going to be there for a while. And then number 4, was Denver, a younger team, really good offensive weapons, but still have a lot of help that they'll have to put around him. But a very good young and upcoming team. Number 5 would be New England, the best football coach ever in Bill Belichick. You'll have a good defense, but you'll have absolutely 0 weapons on offense for the first year or so until Belichick can start to bring in some better talent. That's the top 5. Number 6 would be Chicago. I love their defense. They have a great city, great history. The fan base will wrap their arms around Deshaun Watson like he's their newborn son. But the GM and the coach are on the hot seat. That's the big but with Chicago, right? You got a great defense. Yeah, it's an awesome city. It would be so fun to play for Chicago. They love their Bears. They'll love you. And if you win there, you will truly be a hero. You will be a king in that city for the rest of your life. You'll never have to pay for a meal in the rest of your life. But the GM, Ryan Pace, he's on the hot seat. He's been on the hot seat. Matt Nagy, the head coach, he's been on the hot seat. How much stability will be there? If you get there and it takes a year or so to acclimate and you guys don't have a good year right away, you might have a new GM and a new head coach in year 2. Okay, also, you have a great defense, but the offense isn't very good. David Montgomery, he's a good up-and-coming running back. The weapons, you really don't have any, right? Allen Robinson definitely is a number 1 wide receiver in this league, but he's a free agent. He might not even be there. So I like Chicago, but that's why they're all the way down at number 6. There's a lot of question marks going. Maybe if you bring Deshaun, that will make Allen Robinson want to stay, but these are things that I would want to know if I'm Deshaun Watson first, and that's why Chicago is down there at number 6. Also, to add on, you have to face a guy like Aaron Rodgers twice a year. Okay, so that's something. Now, number 7 is Carolina. Okay, Carolina, they've got some great weapons. That Christian McCaffrey, one of the best running backs in the league, someone that you'll be able to dump the ball off to when you're in trouble, when there's pressure around. You got DJ Moore, you got Robbie Anderson. You have some really good weapons. The problem is they're in a total rebuild on the defensive side of the ball. You're going to be in a shootout almost every single week, which is exactly what you were doing in Houston. Now, you have a much better coach in Matt Rule, a fantastic coach in Matt Rule, and you have a very aggressive owner, someone that, he's shown us that he will throw money at stuff to make things work, like he did to get Matt Rule. He saw that the Giants were interested in him. Nope, here, take this massive contract. I want you as my coach. So I absolutely love the pieces on offense, but the defense worries me. I feel like you'll be going from one team that had to throw up 40 points to win a game to another team that has to throw up 40 points to win a game. With all that being said, ladies and gentlemen, I actually think the Panthers might get him. And that's because of their owner. I'm telling you when I say this, their owner, when he sees something he wants, I live here in Carolina, I know this team very well, he goes and gets it. He's already come out and said that they're going to be in the mix for Deshaun Watson. He might offer the Texans so much that they can't say no. And he might blow away all these other teams because of the amount that he wants to offer. So watch out for Carolina. I really think Carolina is a top destination for Deshaun Watson because of how aggressive their owner might be in getting him. Defense needs a lot of help, but offense will be there. You have a great coach in Matt Rule. Would be a very interesting situation. Number 8 is the Jets. And now listen, I know a lot of people are saying they should be up there at the top because they're his top destination. To me, if I'm Deshaun Watson, I wouldn't want them to be my top destination. Look, their ownership is a mess. Okay? Their ownership is a mess. It's been a mess for a while. You have a first-year head coach in Robert Saleh, who I really like. I think he'll do a good job, but it's his first year. We don't know. There's so much uncertainty in these head coaches. We have no idea. We have no idea, right? They don't have many weapons. They have my guy Braxton Berrios, who's a great receiver. He's done a lot of good work, and he's going to keep getting better and better. They've got Jamison Crowder. It seems like the rookie Denzel Mims out of Baylor will be good, but their offensive line is still not great. Mekhi Becton did a great job as a rookie, but the other pieces are still questionable. Their defense is still questionable. There's a lot of holes on this roster. That's why they traded Jamal Adams to get more picks. Like, this roster needs a lot of work. And while I do like the trajectory, I really do like the trajectory that they're going in by hiring Robert Saleh. The GM Joe Douglas has shown that he can hit on draft picks in the 1 year that he's drafted so far. He seems like he knows what he's doing, but still, it's the New York Jets. Their ownership is chaotic. You never know what's going to happen, and there's still a lot of uncertainty. And that's why they're down here. Look, it's still an awesome situation. It still would be great to play in New York because that's another team like Chicago. If you win in New York, if you win for the Jets, you are a king there. Literally, you're royalty. You will never pay for another meal in New York for the rest of your life. So that whole great legacy, great city, all that stuff, that's fun. But a lot of uncertainty there, and that's why I'd be a little bit more hesitant on going to the Jets if I'm Deshaun Watson. So that's my top 8 right there. 49ers 1, Miami 2. And if you look at it, Miami, that would be really fun place to see him play under Brian Flores. Washington 3, Denver 4, New England 5, Chicago 6, Carolina 7, and the New York Jets number 8. And we'll see. Look, he's going to get traded eventually. We'll see what happens, but he will be traded eventually. Now, back to the breaking news. Again, if you're just tuning in, you'll already hear this by the time this comes out, but Adam Schefter reported massive deal. Longtime Detroit Lion QB Matthew Stafford is going to the Rams for Jared Goff and 2 first-round picks, one in 2022 and another in 2023. Look, the Rams are the most aggressive franchise in all of sports. I mean, it's just that simple. The fact that, look, they have not had a first-round pick since 2016. They haven't had a first-round pick since 2016 because they traded up to get Jared Goff in the first place, so they gave away their first-round picks for that. Then they traded 2 more first-round picks to get Jalen Ramsey from Jacksonville, and now they just traded 2 more to get Matthew Stafford. It really is fascinating, just to go down this road real quick, the way the Rams have operated. Think about this, guys. The NFL is a sport where the NFL draft is so coveted. Right? It's such a popular thing. They've turned it into a reality show. They really have with the way they do it. Millions of people have watched because it gives teams hope. It's fun. It gives your team hope. If you suck and you get a if you get a first round pick in the top 5, you say, hey, look, we can grab someone from this guy from college, we can turn our team around. It gives your team hope. And the NFL has done a great job turning it into a spectacle. But it's also, for NFL franchises, first-round picks are something that are highly coveted. I mean, these teams are scared. These GMs, these coaches, they're scared out of their mind to trade away a first-round pick. They don't want to do it, right? It's something that, because there's so much talent in the NFL, but there's also that top-end talent. There's only a finite number of little top-end talent, where a lot of these coaches and these GMs think you have to get that from the first round. So it is so rare to see a team do it the way the Rams are doing it. And that's not picking in the first round for the last 6. It's going to be total for 7 years without having a first-round pick. And they have still, they haven't had a first-round pick since 2016, so that's 5 years so far. And they still have made the playoffs every single year but one. They still have had a winning record every single year. So they're doing it in a completely unconventional way, but they're still having success. And it's going to be so interesting to see if they kind of change the way that NFL teams value first-round picks. There's such a high value on first. It's not like the NBA. The NBA picks are not as important as they are in the NFL. The NFL, if you can pile up a bunch of picks, we always point at you and say, hey, you won that trade because you just got 2-3 first-round picks for it, right? When the Jets got 2 first-round picks for Jamal Adams, I was standing up here saying, look, Jamal Adams is a great safety, but 2 first-round picks? Come on, I'll take that all day. You just got to hit on those picks now. And the Rams are doing it without first-round picks in a league that makes that everyone is so highly coveted of those picks. It's so interesting to see the way the Rams operate. It really are. They're one of the most interesting organizations in sports, and they're doing it. They're winning still by great coaching and great scouting, right? So what do I mean by that? First of all, Sean McVay knows how to get the best out of his players. That is a huge part of this. Second, they are hitting on guys in the mid to late rounds of the draft and in free agency. Look at Cam Akers. They got Cam Akers in the second round, and he will now be their starting running back for the next 3, 4, 5 years. He looks amazing, right? He looked so good last year as a rookie. All right, they bring in guys like Leonard Floyd, who was drafted in the top 10 by Chicago back in 2016. And he was there for 4 years, and the most sacks that he had in one season was 7. He had 7 his rookie year. After that, he had 4.5, then he had 4, and then he had 3. So then Chicago let him go. The Rams go and sign him, and in 1 year with the Rams, he has 10.5 sacks, total of 50 tackles, a pass deflection. I mean, he had his career year. So they do this. They bring in guys from free agency that can fit their scheme, that can fit their system, and then they hit on guys in the late rounds of the draft, the mid to late rounds of the draft, and that's how they still have been successful. It is so rare to see a team give up so many first-round picks and still win. And the way the Rams are doing it, it's going to be so interesting to see if this is a change of pace for the way other teams start to do it, where they maybe say, you know what? Why are we so obsessed with this first-round pick? Let's go in. But you got to make sure you can do it right, because if you can't hit on those guys in free agency, if you can't find those mid to lower tier dollared players, as in not throwing big money at players, but bringing them in and having them fit your system, or hitting on guys in the 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th round, then you will be a mess, and you'll really set your team back for many, many years. But the Rams have been able to avoid that, and it's fascinating. So now Matthew Stafford is going to get his chance to finally get a playoff win, possibly a Super Bowl appearance, and Jared Goff will be starting over his career in Detroit, seeing if he can rewrite what the Rams thought of him, which was he wasn't going to be able to get it done for them. He will be motivated, Stafford will be motivated, and the NFL offseason has officially been underway, and we still haven't even had the Super Bowl yet. Wow, what a league. What a league. This is the GSMC Football Podcast. Really appreciate all of you guys for listening and tuning in today. As always, the GSMC Football Podcast is brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. I would like to ask that you guys please remember to subscribe to the show, write a nice review. It really helps us out. Also, if you can, follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Thank you so much, everyone. Have a great day. Have a great night. We will be back on Tuesday to talk more about this trade and then to start really getting into the Super Bowl with predictions, prop bets, all of that stuff. Stay tuned. Can't wait to discuss it all. Have a great week.
Tired of searching the vast jungle of podcasts? Now listen close and hear this out. There's a podcast network that covers just about everything that you've been searching. Hey! The Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network is here. Nothing less than a podcast bliss with endless hours of podcast coverage. From news, sports, music, fashion, cooking, entertainment, fantasy football, and so much more. So stop lurking around and go straight out to the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. Guaranteed to fill that podcast itch. Whatever it may be. Visit us at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Follow us on Facebook and Twitter, and download us on iTunes, SoundCloud, and Google Play.